Hello, and welcome to MedCare Equipment Company's video tutorial of the V+PRO ventilator. This ventilator can be used for invasive and non-invasive ventilation, but here at MedCare Equipment Company, we primarily use this ventilator as non-invasive ventilator, which means the circuit would eventually connect to a CPAP-style mask for the patient to wear and receive therapy. The most common mode that we use for non-invasive therapy is volume targeted pressure support, which is a ventilation mode that delivers a set tidal volume to the patient by adjusting the pressure control target on a breath-to-breath basis. This mode is useful in maintaining a consistent volume delivery in the face of changing patient conditions. So let's look at our ventilator. We'll start with the back. Across the bottom, the first connection we see is a 50 psi oxygen connection. This is only used in the hospital setting. What we use at home is the next oxygen connector with this plastic nipple adapter that would connect to oxygen tubing that would connect to the patient's oxygen concentrator. The V+PRO can accept up to 20 liters per minute of oxygen flow. The next area is usually covered by this rubber flap, but once it's open, you will find a USB port that a respiratory therapist can insert a USB stick into during their vent visit to collect your therapy data. However, most of our devices have this black data link modem adhered to the back of the device and plugged in the same spot the USB stick goes into. This will remotely and automatically deliver your therapy data to the cloud and subsequently to our software platform. On the back, you'll also find two filters, an air inlet filter, and inside this grate that can be pried off is a fan filter. Both filters are made of a black spongy material that should be cleaned at least recommended every 2 weeks and replaced every 6 months. And lastly is your power connection. That is a heavy-duty power cord that plugs into the back of the vent and screws on so that it cannot accidentally be knocked out and deplete the ventilator's batteries without the patient knowing. The cord first goes to this green reducer box, well, black reducer box, but you know it's plugged in because it has a green light lit up. And then the other cord is clicked into place, so again, it can't automatically fall out and drain the batteries. And then this cord plugs into the AC outlet of your wall. So I mentioned the device does have batteries. It has an internal battery that fully charged lasts an hour. And then it has two external batteries. Again, fully charged. Each battery will last 4 hours. To get it out, just pull up on the blue flap and the external battery will come out. And again, there's a second one on the other side also. Pull up the flap. Pull out the battery. So again, each battery, 4 hours fully charged, plus the 1 hour internal battery for a total of 9 hours of battery life before the vent has to be plugged back in and charged. However, again, we recommend to plug in as often as possible to keep those batteries as charged as possible. Also on this side, you'll see a bacterial filter. This is in place to, one, protect the patient from any germs, but also to protect the inside of the vent from any germs or bacteria. So let me take it off first to show you. This is a proprietary filter that only works with this device. It is the only filter that can work with this device. On top of the filter is a little blue notch. and there's a little notch on top of the opening in the vent. So simply line up those notches and turn clockwise a quarter of a turn until you feel it seat into place. And this is where we would plug in the circuit that eventually goes to the humidifier and then to the patient's mask. Which brings us to the front of the device. The main display screen, the speaker, because there are alarms, and a silence button for when alarms do go off, and a power button. Beside the power button, you'll see a little amber light, which means it is charging. That light will turn green when it's running and fully charged. So we'll power on. It's just a one push power on. The machine takes less than a minute to warm up and start producing therapy. You'll also hear a couple buttons as it warms up. Beeps. There it goes. So it turned green to say we're running. But again, once it senses the batteries, it should turn amber again. Every time the vent powers up, we see this pre-use test, which a respiratory therapist would use when they first connect your ventilator. But again, it comes up every time. So every time you power on first, and then hit the exit arrow on the left-hand side of your screen, which will bring you to the home screen. On the home screen, you'll see one across the top, an alarm status bar. Right now, there are no alarms, but we're going to show you some here shortly. And now, just to show you, the vent on top here shows you the battery indicators. Right now, the internal battery is charging. And again, this turned back to amber to let you know you're charging. The internal battery always charges first, and once it's fully charged, the external batteries will begin to charge also. And again, next to that is a little plug icon to let you know you do have it plugged in. This is your breath bar. So every time you breathe in, the bar extends blue and then decreases as you exhale. The three main parameters on the home screen that you'll see is patient breath rate, how many breaths per minute the patient is taking, their tidal volume, how much volume of air are they taking into their lungs, and the leak, which is very important. Leak is how well sealed the mask is on the patient's face. Generally, we want that around 20s, 30s. We're getting 11 here on the test lung, but again, 11s, single digits are very rare because all masks have a built-in exhalation valve that loses some air. We just don't want to see that leak up into the 80s and 90s and 100s. That's too much leak, and it will make the device think that it's disconnected. And when it's disconnected, we'll see this alarm. We're going to take the entire circuit off. But again, if your leak is too high, you can get this alarm also. First, it'll be a low inspiratory pressure alarm, which switches over to a patient disconnect alarm. This button's alarm silence. It's a bell with an X through it. It'll quiet that beeping down while you troubleshoot to see what is causing that leak. Well, for us, I'm completely disconnected. So once I connect back up, the machine takes a few breaths and will recognize that there's no more leak anymore. And the alarm status bar is back to gray. Again, it takes it a couple seconds to recalibrate, and we'll get a regular tidal volume and a normal leak again. Again, for patients at home, this usually happens when the mask is too loose. It is leaking a high leak in the 70s, 80s, 90s. So when you hear the patient disconnect alarm, automatically think about snugging the mask up on the patient's face. The last thing in the bottom right-hand corner, it says night mode. So right now it's daytime, it doesn't seem that bright, but at night that screen is very bright. So you can hit the nighttime mode and it'll darken that So that does not impede sleep. And now it says day mode, so when you wake up, hit the day mode, it'll light it back up again. At this time, the patient would wake up, they're ready to start their day, so they power off. It's not just a one push now, it's a 3-second hold, push and hold. So 1001, 1002, 1003, and then it asks you for sure, do you really want to turn off? Yes, I'm ready to wake up, I'm okay with that. And system shuts down. And that is a quick overview of the V+PRO ventilator.